Let me share with you a little joke that I think is connected to this week's sermon. And I heard about this man. He was a fancy businessman who had to go from one city to another. And in order to do that, he has to go for a long stretch of nothing, right? You know, when you go to the countryside, there is nothing around. And he got a flat tire. So, no big deal. He goes to the trunk for the jack to replace the tire. There is no jack. So, okay, he tried his cell phone. No signal. So he said, what do I do now? Middle of nowhere. He sees, a few meters there, a house. Country house in the middle of nowhere. So he said, okay, my lucky day. I will go there. I'm pretty sure they will have a jack. So he started working towards the house, and he started thinking, he said, oh, the people there don't know me. So I'm sure they won't let me use their jack. So he was ready to go back and said, no, country people, they're nice. So he's pretty sure I can use their jack. So he keeps walking, and I said, whoa, but he will notice that I'm from the city. And then he will think that I'm trying to con the person, so they won't let me use their jack. So I started going back. I said, nah, it's going to be fine. So he keeps walking, and they said, no, but you know what? Only house around. I'm pretty sure it happened before. Somebody else from the city took the jack, never returned it. So I won't get it. So it's like, well, no, I think it's going to be fine. I will keep going. And they said, well, but he realized how desperate I am. It's going to charge me a fortune to use the jack. And he started to get angry. And then he finally knocked at the door. A friendly man said, yes. I said, you know what? You can keep your stinking jack. I want to talk to you today about the wrong story. The wrong story. You see, we are at the last month, the Jewish year, the month of Elul. It's interesting because in Spanish, we have a joke about this because it's the last in Spanish is el último. So it's el último, right? Yeah. So this is the last month of the Jewish calendar, and lots of things going on. If you come to daily Minyan, you will notice that we're starting to blow the shofar. Why is that? Why the shofar is a wake-up call? So because there are certain things that we're supposed to do during the month of Elul. So what do we have to do during the month of Elul in preparation for the high holidays? Number one, it's a time where we start thinking about our resolutions. Yes, we also have resolutions for the new year. And the month of Elul, it's time to start organizing our ideas and start planning ahead for the year to come. What we want to do, what we want to achieve, what we want to change. So we have dreams, projects, ideas, hopefully big, right? But the interesting thing is, if you're like me, the year before, you also had dreams, projects, and ideas. And the other thing that we do during the month of Elul is that we evaluate what happened with those big dreams, projects, and ideas. And I realized that we always approach the end of the year with good intentions, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't bother dreaming. You wouldn't bother making any project if you don't have good intentions. But then what happened? We allowed negative thoughts to get into our heads, and then those negative thoughts start destroying our dreams, our projects, and our resolutions, one by one. And then we reach the end of the year, we look back and say, what happened with everything that I was hoping to do during last year? And we realize that sometimes when we fail, it has nothing to do with your lack of skills, nothing to do with your lack of resources, and it has all to do with allowing negative thoughts to kill your projects one by one. So again, back to Elul. New Year is coming up. Yes, we have to dream big for the next year. We should never, and you should never settle with good enough. You have to always aim for great things. But then if you don't want to make the same mistakes, you have to find ways to protect your resolutions. Always to find ways to protect your resolutions. In this week's Parsha, start with something very interesting. It will say, at the very beginning, right opening, it says, Shoftim v'shotrim titan lecha bechol she'arecha. You have to get judges and police officers in all your gates. Okay? Literal reading of this verse means if you're in a city, you need to allow the judges to be at the gates. I guess that's where the judges were back in the day. The courthouses were at the gates of the cities. So in every gate of the city, there was where you will go if you needed a judge, if you needed somebody to hear your case, okay? So that's the literal reading. You have to go to the gates and to put a judge there. But I believe there is more, because if that's all we take from this week's Parsha, it's something that is very useful 2,500 years ago, but not so useful in these days where physical judges are not sitting at the gates anymore, right? And the police officers are not next to them. So how can we make this Parsha meaningful to us? And the rabbis always say that literal reading of a verse is level 1. You know, in Judaism, we have 4 levels on how to read a verse. That goes all the way from the literal meaning to the esoteric reading of the verse. Literal, level 1. Level 2, that perhaps is the one that we can use more when we read Torah, is to try to read the metaphor in every verse we read. And what is the metaphor? To put a judge in all your gates. The rabbi said, you have to put a judge in your entrances, your eyes, your ears, in your mouth, in the sense that you have to judge everything you see. You have to judge everything you hear. You have to judge everything you eat, right? Not everything is kosher. You have to judge everything that comes out of your mouth. What are you saying to other people? You have to judge every word, and then you need the shotrim, the police officers, so to speak. The ones you decide what the judge said, so that could be done. Once you decide what you see, it's not good. Well, you need the cop, the police officer, to remove that obstacle. Once you decide what you heard, it's not good for you, then you need to find a way to avoid that information. And everything in Judaism, and this parsha continues with more explanation on how we do that. It says that everything that comes to our gates or out of our gates has to be meticulously examined. And it says that you need at least 2 witnesses. Not only that, the parsha doesn't say just 2 witnesses, it said 2 credible witnesses. Because it's okay, 2 witnesses. I will ask a couple of friends if this is good or this is bad. No. 2 credible witnesses. Sometimes you have to be experts. Not every word that comes to you has the same value. So it has to be 2 credible witnesses. Because the problem is sometimes we listen to bad advice. And I don't know if you are like me. We start playing a movie in our head. We love to imagine. That is one of the problems with human beings. Sometimes we have very little information and we start creating a movie inside our head. We start imagining usually the worst based on that little information that we have, and then we make decisions based on that. Like the guy of the joke. When he went for the jack, he started to imagine already that that person opening the door is going to be a bad person. That he was already tricked in advance. So, of course, he will never give me the jack. Was that true? I don't know. How can you make a decision based on that little information? So we have to be very careful on how we react to that little information that we have. And we have to find ways, at least to be conscious, that we like to imagine things that they are not real. And sometimes we kill our dreams, our projects, our ideas, our resolutions based on something that is in our imagination and is not real at all. You know that, yes, we needed 2 witnesses. And then, especially for capital punishment. And then, but it's funny because you go to the Talmud, and the Talmud will add even more restrictions. So back in Talmudic days, it was virtually impossible to apply the capital punishment. And I realized that maybe we should use that more in our lives, in the sense that when we're about to quit and we're about to kill a project, we invested so much, we should make it very difficult for that to happen, and we should always give it one more chance. Now, it's interesting that yesterday, Dr. Rina won't let me lie here, the Shai Zedek, we went through a very interesting training. That's one of the things that we did was like a 9-hour session on conflict resolution and respectful workplace. 9 hours training. I'm about to summarize it in 2 minutes. No, just kidding. One of the things that the facilitator asked at the beginning is for everyone, say your name, what you do, and what you do when you're not working, right? And everybody was saying that when it was my turn, I said my name, I'm the rabbi. What do you do when I'm not working? And what else you do? And I realized that everything I do outside work, I'm still doing as a rabbi. So perhaps the only exception is sleeping, right? I go to the supermarket. I'm a rabbi. People look at my cart, right? Is that kosher? Right? Everywhere I go. And so it's interesting, everywhere. And I realized that yesterday's, or like a Thursday, training was not an exception. I took the training as a rabbi, and I was already learning from everything from a rabbinic point of view. And I realized that it was a teaching that we received on Thursday that totally applied to this parsha. The facilitator was talking about, when talking about a conflict at work, how many times is in our imagination. We have very little information, and we already make decisions about the other person. Oh, it's evil. It's after me. Want my job, right? They want to destroy me. And said, whoa, why? What makes you say that? It's because, and that's the word he was using, we tell ourselves the wrong story based on that little information, right? So I was saying, yes, that is something that we should all apply, not just at work, in every aspect of our lives. Most of the time, we tell ourselves the wrong story. Everywhere we go, we let our imagination, with that little information we have, tell us what to do. And there is something that if you look in retrospective for the last year, when you're about to make resolutions for the next year, perhaps is the main reason why you didn't achieve the things that you wanted to achieve the last year. So for the year ahead, what I was thinking is that we should all, once again, dream big. Have great projects, great ideas, great resolutions, and then protect them, but telling yourself the right story. Shabbat Shalom.